The massive ships appeared without warning above Earth's major cities. They were beautiful in a way that made human engineering look like crude drawings compared to fine art. The vessels hung in the sky like polished gemstones, each one the size of a small mountain, reflecting sunlight in colors that seemed impossible. Sarah Chen stood on the balcony of the United Earth Government building in Geneva, staring up at the ship positioned directly overhead. She was the Secretary of Defense, and in her 40 years of life, she had never felt so small. Her phone buzzed constantly with reports from military installations around the world. Every weapon system was active, every soldier on high alert, but they all knew the truth. If these visitors wanted to destroy Earth, there was nothing humanity could do to stop them. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Concordat. Their message had been transmitted simultaneously to every communication device on the planet, translated perfectly into every human language. They came in peace, they said. They came to offer protection. 3 days later, their delegation arrived at the UEG headquarters. The aliens were diverse in appearance. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, others on 4 or 6. Some had scales, others had fur or skin that shimmered like oil on water. But they all carried themselves with a kind of gentle confidence that reminded Sarah of teachers speaking to young children. The lead diplomat was called Ambassador Thelrian. He was tall and slender, with golden skin and large dark eyes that seemed kind. He spoke with a soft voice that the translation device rendered in perfect English. "Humanity," he began, addressing the assembled leaders of Earth. "You stand at a crossroads. You have achieved faster than light travel. You have reached out into the cosmos. This is a remarkable achievement, and it marks your species as intelligent and worthy of recognition." Sarah watched the ambassador carefully. His words were compliments, but something about his tone felt off. It was the way an adult might praise a child for learning to tie their shoes. "However," Thelrian continued, "the galaxy is far more dangerous than you can imagine. There are forces in the darkness between stars that would see your beautiful world consumed. Races that view younger civilizations as nothing more than resources to be harvested. We have watched species like yours emerge before, full of hope and curiosity, only to be destroyed before they could truly flourish." A holographic display activated in the center of the room. It showed images of dead worlds, burned surfaces, shattered cities, debris fields where planets had once orbited. The leaders around the table shifted uncomfortably. "This is why the Galactic Concordat exists," the ambassador said. "For 3,000 years we have maintained peace across 47 member species and protected 214 younger civilizations. We offer you this same protection." The terms appeared on screens around the room. Sarah read them quickly, her military mind analyzing every word. Protected species status. It sounded good. Technology transfers. Access to galactic trade networks. Medical advances that could cure every disease known to humanity. Military defense against any external threat. But then came the other clauses. Protected species would surrender all weapons development beyond what the Concordat deemed appropriate. They would accept Concordat governors to oversee their governments. They would be assigned specific territories and could not expand beyond them without permission. Their brightest minds could be recruited for Concordat service. They would follow all Concordat laws, even if those laws contradicted their own cultures. "Think of it as guardianship," Thelrian said with what might have been a smile. "You would be free to develop your arts, your culture, your sciences within safe boundaries. All we ask is that you allow us to handle the dangerous aspects of galactic civilization. You would be protected, prosperous, and safe." President Maria Okonkwo of the UEG spoke for the first time. "And if we refuse?" The ambassador's expression remained gentle, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Then you would face the galaxy alone. The Devourers are expanding through this region of space. They are a force of consumption, breaking down everything in their path to fuel their endless hunger. 3 worlds have fallen in the last year alone. Without protection, Earth would be just another target." "How long do we have to decide?" Maria asked. 30 days, Thelrian replied. "We understand this is a significant decision. Take your time. Consult with your people. But know that the Devourers do not wait, and neither can we." After the delegation left, Sarah remained in the conference room with President Okonkwo and a handful of other key officials. The silence was heavy. "It's a cage," Sarah finally said. "A comfortable cage with golden bars, but still a cage." "It's also survival," countered Economic Minister James Park. "Did you see those dead worlds? We can't fight something like the Devourers. We barely have a functional space military. Maria leaned back in her chair, looking tired. We need more information. Sarah, put our intelligence services to work. I want to know everything about the Concordat, these protected species and the Devourers. Everything they're not telling us. You know, already on it, Sarah replied. I've got our best hackers and analysts working around the clock. The president nodded. We have 30 days to make a choice that will define humanity's future. Let's make sure we understand exactly what we're choosing. As Sarah left the building that night, she looked up at the alien ship still hanging in the sky above Geneva, beautiful and terrible, offering safety at the cost of freedom. In her gut, she felt that humanity was being offered a deal that was too good to be true. And in her experience, when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. The breakthrough came on day 12. A young programmer named Marcus Webb, working out of a secure facility in Tokyo, managed to slip a probe into the Concordat diplomatic vessel's network. It was incredibly risky. If caught, it could be considered an act of war. But Marcus was good at his job and he was careful. The data started flowing in, and what they found changed everything. Sarah Chen sat in a darkened room with a team of analysts, scrolling through translated documents on her screen. Each file she opened made her feel colder inside. This was not the generous offer the Concordat had presented. This was something far worse. Look at this, said Dr. Amira Hassan, the lead xenosociologist. She projected a file onto the main screen. This is the Concordat's internal classification for protected species. They don't call them protected. They call them secured assets. The room fell silent as they read. Protected species were resources. Their best scientists were recruited away to serve Concordat interests, never to return home. Their natural resources were extracted under the guise of trade, but at rates set entirely by the Concordat. Their military capabilities were deliberately kept weak. Their populations were controlled through subtle means, kept comfortable enough not to rebel but never strong enough to be independent. It gets worse, Marcus said, pulling up another file. I found the historical records. 214 protected species, right? Guess how many have ever graduated to full Concordat membership? How many? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer would be bad. 0, not 1, not in 3,000 years. The system is designed to keep them dependent forever. James Park, who had argued for accepting the offer, looked sick. They're not protectors. They're farmers. And we're the livestock, Sarah nodded grimly. Keep digging. I want to know about the Devourers. I want to know why the Concordat is really scared of them. Over the next week, the picture became clearer. The Devourers were indeed a threat, a species that consumed resources at an incredible rate, moving from system to system like locusts. But the files revealed something important. The Concordat had fought them to a standstill, not through superior tactics or bravery, but through sheer numbers and resources extracted from their protected species. The problem was that the Concordat had grown soft. 3,000 years of peace and bureaucracy had made them cautious and predictable. Their military doctrine was ancient, unchanged for centuries. They fought by committee. Every battle plan required approval from multiple councils. Every tactical decision was risk-assessed until any advantage was lost. The Devourers, primitive as they were, had learned to exploit this. They knew how the Concordat would respond to every situation because the Concordat always responded the same way. But there was something else in the files, something that made Sarah's heart race. There were internal Concordat studies on humanity. They had been watching Earth for decades, studying human history through intercepted broadcasts and long-range observations. The reports were fascinating and terrifying. Concordat analysts had studied human warfare from ancient times to the present. They had watched humans develop tactics, adapt, improvise, and survive against impossible odds. They had noted how humans never fought the same way twice, how they learned from defeat, how they turned weaknesses into strengths. One report, written by a Concordat military strategist, was marked as classified at the highest level. Sarah read it with growing understanding. Species 7843, self-designated as humans, presents an unusual psychological profile. Unlike most spacefaring civilizations which evolved as either pursuit predators or herd prey, humans appear to be persistence predators who developed intelligence and cooperation as survival mechanisms. This has resulted in unique traits: high adaptability, creativity and problem solving, tolerance for risk, and what can only be described as tactical unpredictability. Recommend extreme caution in military interactions. Also recommend immediate protected species status to prevent development of advanced warfare capabilities. This species, if allowed to mature militarily, could destabilize established power structures. They're afraid of us, Dr. Hassan whispered. That's why they're here. Not to protect us. To contain us. Sarah stood up and began pacing. Her military mind was putting pieces together. They know we could beat the Devourers. They know we think differently, fight differently. That's exactly why they want us locked down as a protected species. We're not the ones who need protection. They are. So what do? Marcus asked. Sarah smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. We prepare, and then we give them an answer they're not expecting. The remaining days were used well. Human engineers reverse-engineered what they could from concordant technology. It was not much, but it was enough to improve their weapons and shields. Military strategists developed plans based on everything they had learned. Scientists worked around the clock on new designs. The Concordat, watching from their ships, assumed the activity meant Earth was preparing to integrate into their system. They saw factories working, ships being built, people coming together. They interpreted it as acceptance. They were wrong. On day 30, President Okonkwo called Sarah to her office. Are we ready? As ready as we'll ever be, Sarah replied. The speech is prepared. The fleet is in position. But Maria, once we do this, there's no going back. We'll be alone out here. The president looked out the window at the Concordat ship. We've always been alone, Sarah. The only difference is now we know it, and we know what we're capable of. Our ancestors survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the threat of nuclear extinction. We didn't survive all that just to become someone else's pets. Then let's show them what humanity really is, Sarah said. That night, as preparations were finalized, Sarah thought about the choice ahead. It was terrifying. It was dangerous. It meant facing the unknown without a safety net. But it was also freedom. And for humanity, freedom had always been worth the risk. The United Nations Interstellar Assembly Hall had never been so crowded. Every nation on Earth had sent representatives. Above them, the Concordat delegation sat in a special viewing section, Ambassador Thelrian at the center looking pleased and expectant. The 30 days had passed and he anticipated acceptance. Why wouldn't they accept? Every species did eventually. The alternative was too frightening. What the ambassador did not know was that this session was being broadcast on every galactic frequency humanity could access. Every Concordat world, every protected species, every independent civilization within range would hear what came next. Human hackers had spent days preparing the transmission network, piggybacking on Concordat infrastructure itself. President Maria Okonkwo walked to the podium. She looked calm, composed even though Sarah knew her heart must be racing. Sarah sat in the front row, her hand near the communicator that would signal the fleet if things went wrong. Maria began to speak. Ambassador Thelrian, members of the Galactic Concordat, and all those listening across the stars. 30 days ago, you offered humanity a choice. You offered us protection, prosperity, and peace. You told us the galaxy is dangerous and that we need your guardianship to survive. Thelrian nodded, his expression patient and kind. We have considered your offer carefully, Maria continued. We have studied your civilization, your history, your methods. We have learned much in these 30 days, and we have reached our decision. The hall was completely silent. Even the constant whisper of translation devices seemed to pause. We decline, Maria said simply. The ambassador's expression flickered with confusion. I don't think you understand the danger. Maria raised her hand. No, Ambassador. You don't understand. We understand perfectly. We understand that protected species never become full members. We understand that you extract resources, recruit talent, and keep civilizations dependent. We understand that your protection is a golden cage. We understand that you need protected species more than they need you. Thelrian stood up, his golden skin darkening with what might have been anger or embarrassment. This is absurd. You have no idea. We also understand your devourer problem, Maria interrupted, her voice growing stronger. We've studied your tactics, your military doctrine, your failures. We've seen how they exploit your predictability, your caution, your bureaucracy. And we've realized something important. She paused, letting the moment build. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched and listened. You don't need us to be protected. You need us to be protectors. You need warriors, and you've forgotten how to be warriors yourselves. The ambassador tried to speak, but Maria's voice cut through the hall like a blade. Let me tell you about humanity, Ambassador. Let me tell you what you've been afraid to acknowledge in your classified reports. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us in every way possible. Ice ages, predators, diseases, disasters. We survived not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we adapted. We learned. We never gave up. On screens around the hall, images appeared. Human history in all its brutal glory. Ancient warriors, medieval battles, world wars, the atomic age. We fought each other for thousands of years. We nearly destroyed ourselves more than once. We learned every possible way that intelligent beings can hurt each other, and we survived it all. We learned strategy, tactics, deception, sacrifice. We learned to win when winning seemed impossible. And yes, we learned to be monsters when we had to be. Thelrian's voice was cold now. You're proud of your barbarism? No, Maria said quietly. We're not proud of it. We're horrified by it. But we learned from it, and that's what makes us different from you. You've had peace for so long that you've forgotten the cost of war. You've forgotten how to think like warriors. You've forgotten that sometimes, to protect what you love, you have to become what you fear. She leaned forward, her eyes locked on the ambassador. So here's our counteroffer, Ambassador. We will help you defeat the Devourers, not as your subjects, not as your protected species, but as your equals, as your soldiers, as the weapon you need but are too civilized to create yourselves. The hall erupted in noise. Concordat delegates shouted. Human representatives rose to their feet. The ambassador's face had gone pale. This is madness, Thelrian shouted. You would condemn yourselves to isolation, to vulnerability. We've been vulnerable our entire existence, Sarah Chen said, standing up. The difference is we got good at it. Maria raised her hands for silence. When it came, she delivered the final blow. You came here offering to protect us from monsters, Ambassador. But we are the monsters. We're the species that climbed to the top of the food chain on a death world through sheer stubbornness and violence. We're the ones who split the atom and pointed it at ourselves just to prove we could. We're the ones who look at impossible odds and see a challenge instead of a death sentence. She smiled, and it was fierce. So thank you for your offer of protection, but we don't need it. Instead, we're offering to be your monsters, your hunters, your last resort when diplomacy fails and civilized options run out. We'll fight your devourers. We'll do the things you can't bring yourselves to do, and when it's over, we'll have earned our place in the galaxy, not as children under your care, but as equals who stood beside you when it mattered. The broadcast cut to show human ships undocking from Earth, ships that had been hiding on the far side of the moon, ships equipped with reverse-engineered and improved Concordat technology. This is Earth's fleet, Maria announced. We're heading to the contested zone where the Devourers are advancing. We're going to show you what humanity can do. And when we're done, you can decide if you want us as allies or enemies. But you will never ever make us pets. The transmission ended. The galaxy fell silent, processing what it had just witnessed. In the assembly hall, Ambassador Thelrian stared at Maria Okonkwo with an expression of shock and something else. Something that might have been fear. Sarah walked up to the podium and stood beside her president. Together, they watched as the Concordat delegation filed out. Confused and angry and uncertain. We just declared independence from an empire we were never part of, Sarah said quietly. And challenged them to stop us, Maria replied. No going back now. No going back, Sarah agreed. Only forward. Above Earth, the human fleet formed up and jumped to hyperspace, leaving the stunned Concordat behind. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had changed everything. Sarah Chen walked through the halls of the New Earth Embassy on the Concordat homeworld of Zentara Prime, still amazed that she was here at all. 6 months ago, humanity had been told to accept protection or face extinction alone. Now, Sarah was Ambassador Chen, representing Earth in the highest councils of galactic civilization. The journey to this point had not been smooth. After the Battle of Thalvon, humanity's small fleet had continued fighting across the contested zone. They had won some engagements decisively. They had lost others painfully, but they had never stopped. Every battle taught them something new about the Devourers, and humans were very good at learning. More importantly, They had taught the Concordat something about themselves. The protected species, watching human broadcasts and hearing stories from soldiers who fought alongside humans, began asking difficult questions. Why were they not allowed to defend themselves? Why had the Concordat kept them weak? If humans could stand against the Devourers after only discovering FTL a few years ago, what could other species do if given the chance? The Concordat leadership had faced a choice: suppress the growing unrest and risk internal collapse, or adapt to this new reality. Surprisingly, they had chosen adaptation, but it had not been easy. Sarah entered the council chamber where representatives from all 47 member species gathered. She took her seat at the circular table, no longer in a visitors section but as an equal. The chair next to her was occupied by Admiral Cole, who had been promoted to Joint Operations Commander. Across from them sat Ambassador Thelrian, who looked like he had aged significantly in 6 months. The council leader, an ancient being named Eldest Mora, gestured for silence with one of her 6 tentacles. Her species had founded the Concordat 3,000 years ago, and she carried the weight of that history in her tired eyes. "We gather today to formalize what has already become reality," Mora said. Her voice translated into every language simultaneously. "Earth's status within the Concordat. Admiral Cole, would you present your report on the current state of the war?" Cole stood, activating a holographic display. "The Devourer advance has been halted across all fronts. In the past month, we've pushed them back from 14 systems. Combined Concordat human forces have destroyed or damaged 63% of their invasion fleet. More importantly, we've captured several command vessels intact, giving us intelligence on their command structure and supply lines." Murmurs spread through the chamber. This was news to most of the council members. "How?" demanded Ambassador Thelrian. "The Devourers have never allowed such captures before." "Because you were fighting them on their terms," Sarah said, standing to join Cole. "You engaged in ship-to-ship combat at long range following established naval doctrine. We went after their logistics. We hit their supply convoys. We used psychological warfare to make their crews afraid. We made them reactive instead of proactive." She pulled up tactical displays showing recent engagements. "More importantly, we've been training Concordat forces in new tactics. Not all species can fight like humans, but many can adapt aspects of our doctrine to their strengths. The 3 Nox, with their superior electronic warfare capabilities, have been devastating when combined with human strike tactics. The Kelvorian heavy assault ships, previously considered outdated, have become breakthrough weapons when used for surprise close-range engagements instead of formation fighting. You've militarized our civilization," Thelrian said bitterly. "Made us into warriors like yourselves." "No," Cole replied firmly. "We've reminded you that you were always warriors. You just forgot. Every species in this council has a history of conflict, of survival against odds. You buried that history under 3,000 years of peace, and that's admirable. But when faced with an existential threat, you need to remember what your ancestors knew: how to fight, how to win, how to survive." Eldest Mora's tentacles waved in what might have been agreement. "The question before us is not whether humanity's methods work. Clearly they do. The question is what place humans should hold in our civilization. Some have proposed that Earth should be offered full Concordat membership immediately. Others believe you should still be classified as a protected species, albeit with special privileges." "Ambassador Chen, what does Earth want?" Sarah had prepared for this moment. She had discussed it with President Okonkwo and the Earth government for weeks. The answer was both simple and complex. "Earth wants neither," she said. "We don't want to be protected, but we also don't want to simply join as Member 48 and follow all existing protocols. We want something new, something that's never existed before." She activated her own display, showing a proposed organizational structure. "We propose the creation of a new category: Guardian Species. Earth would maintain complete sovereignty over our worlds and military. We would not be subject to Concordat governance or cultural protocols. In exchange, we would serve as the Concordat's rapid response force. When threats emerge that require unconventional tactics or operations too dangerous for regular forces, you call us." "You want to be mercenaries," Thelrian said. "We want to be specialists," Sarah corrected. "Every organization needs people who handle the jobs no one else wants to do. In human military history, we had special forces units, elite soldiers who trained for missions that regular forces couldn't handle. That's what we're offering to be for the Concordat. And in return, Mora asked, full access to Concordat technology, trade networks, and knowledge. A seat on this council with full voting rights on military matters, protection of Earth and human colonies under Concordat law, and most importantly, the right to remain human. We won't be modified, domesticated, or civilized against our will. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species supported the proposal, especially those whose worlds had been saved by human intervention. Others feared giving humanity too much power. The argument went on for hours. Finally, Eldest Mora called for a vote. The proposal passed by a narrow margin. Earth would become the first guardian species in Concordat history. As the council adjourned, Thelrian approached Sarah. He looked conflicted. You've changed everything, he said quietly. The Concordat will never be the same. Good, Sarah replied. Because the galaxy has changed. The Devourers prove that. You can either adapt or die. We're just helping you adapt. I still believe you are dangerous, the ambassador admitted. Your capacity for violence, your unpredictability, your refusal to follow established rules. We are dangerous, Sarah agreed. But we're dangerous to your enemies, not to you. As long as the Concordat respects our sovereignty and treats us as equals, we'll stand with you. But if you ever try to cage us again, you'll discover just how dangerous we can be. Thelrian nodded slowly and walked away. Sarah watched him go, knowing that some wounds would take time to heal. Cole joined her at the window overlooking Zentara Prime's capital city. Think it'll work? This partnership? It has to, Sarah said, because the Devourers are just one threat. The galaxy is vast and full of dangers. The Concordat needs to remember how to defend itself, and we need allies who can give us the knowledge and resources to survive out here. A week later, the final battle against the Devourers began. It was a massive coordinated assault, combining Concordat resources with human tactics. The Devourer homeworld was the target, and the fleet that converged on it was the largest military force the Concordat had assembled in 1,000 years. The battle raged for 3 days. Ships burned, lives were lost. But in the end, the Devourers were defeated. Not destroyed entirely, but broken as a military force, scattered back into the darkness from which they had come. On Earth, a memorial was constructed. A simple stone wall listing the names of every human who had died in the 6-month campaign. At the top, carved in letters that could be seen from orbit, was a phrase that became humanity's motto among the stars. We did not come to be protected. We came to protect. Sarah stood before that memorial on the day it was dedicated, thinking about how far humanity had come, from a species offered a gilded cage to equals standing among the stars, from children needing protection to guardians protecting others. President Okonkwo joined her, looking at the names on the wall. Was it worth it? The cost? Sarah thought about the fallen, about the risks they had taken, about the future they had secured. Yes, she said finally, because they didn't die as subjects or pets. They died as free people defending not just Earth, but the principle that every species deserves the right to stand on its own. That's worth any price. Far across the galaxy, on worlds both protected and free, beings looked up at the stars and thought about the humans, some with fear, some with hope, some with curiosity, but all with respect. And in the darkness between stars, other civilizations heard the stories and wondered, should they make contact with this strange new species? Should they offer alliance or avoid them entirely? One thing was certain. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The species that had climbed from the mud of a death world to stand among ancient civilizations had proven something fundamental. That courage, creativity, and the refusal to surrender could change everything. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy had listened. Now came the harder task of living up to the legend they had created. But Sarah knew her species. They had never backed down from a challenge yet. The future was uncertain, dangerous, and full of possibilities. Exactly how humans liked it.